The history of the Burleigh Village Uniting Church began 100 years ago. Early in 1923, the Methodist congregation met at the beachfront when the permanent population was just 300.
Unfortunately, this location was abandoned after 2 services due to the noise of the surf. According to our records, these first services of the Methodist Church were led by the Reverend J. Bean of Southport.
Burleigh Heads had always been popular as a holiday destination, with a branch line delivering rail passengers to the Oyster Bed Hotel and Station, located at Booning Bar.
This was the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Francis on the highway and opposite Burleigh State School. Many of the early Methodist home church services were conducted here between 1924 and 1928.
An important guest this morning is Gladys Rankin, née Francis, who was born in Southport Hospital. We won't say exactly what year, but she does recount that she attended the Burleigh Heads School as a foundation student in 1936. Gladys is pictured here cutting her farewell cake in June 2019, the year she sold up her much-loved home in Burleigh Waters and moved to be closer to her immediate family.
Gladys's father, Clary, was an important local identity. He operated a bus service to West Burleigh Station and charged 20 cents for a single journey, a not inconsiderable sum in those days. When the road to Southport was completed in 1928, Clary joined with Joe Shaw and formed the Red Bus Company. Unfortunately, the so-called highway flooded near the present site of the Broadbeach Casino. Gladys's mum often had to ride on the running board with a stick to test the depth of the water. Clary retired in 1960.
Justin's store and tea rooms opened in 1919 on the very familiar corner of Connor Street and the Gold Coast Highway.
By 1925, the Miami Hotel and F.J. Smith's new Burleigh Hotel had been opened. Originally, F.J. operated a guest house on this very site of our current church, but he sold up and moved to be nearer the Burleigh beachfront.
Another landmark was the famous Imperial Refreshment Rooms, opened in James Street in 1927. Just 1 year later, the bridge across Tallabudgera Creek was completed.
On the 25th of April 1925, Reverend Dr. H. Youngman announced that 966 square metres of land had been purchased for $350 under the Methodist model deed to set up a church on the former site of the Burleigh Lodge. On the 30th of October 1925, it was agreed to proceed with plans to build a Methodist church on the current site at an eventual cost of $1,119.
By February the 1st, 1927, the loan fund had a credit of £120, which is $240, for building purposes. The builders were Messrs Somerville and Burney of Northgate, Brisbane, with Mr Somerville, his wife and family, camping on the site until the church was officially opened on the 23rd of December 1928. In an unprecedented step, the congregation was so pleased with the builder's efforts, they paid him a bonus.
The Reverend Stanley Y. Potter led the Methodist Church at Southport from 1924 until 1928.
My name is Dorothy Dart. My father, whose name was the Reverend S.Y. Potter, a Methodist probationer, was stationed at Southport during the late 1920s, and he was, I believe, responsible for encouraging this site to be bought for the Burleigh Church to be built. He used to ride his bicycle when the tide was out. Sometimes he rode his bike from Southport to Burleigh to visit people or to preach. And another interesting little anecdote is that he was not the first probationer to preach down here at Burleigh, but before him they used to worship down near the front. The complaint was made that the waves, the surf was too loud, and so they wanted to move further away. I'd hate to see it today with all the noise down there anyway, if the church was there today. But they did subsequently move to another spot, but anyway, they ended up purchasing this land here, and you know the rest. Since then, this has become a place of worship and continues today to be a wonderful inspiration to anyone who comes into this building to feel the presence of God here today. And I'm sure if my dad was alive today, he would just be overjoyed to think that the work that he was instrumental in having a hand in is continuing and flourishing the way it is today.
He was replaced by the Reverend C.A. Reid as the Superintendent Minister. To conduct Burleigh services, both had to travel over potholed gravel tracks and along the beach at low tide in a T-model Ford. At that time, the circuit extended from Southport to Coolangatta. In July 1929, the replacement minister was the Reverend P.J. Lamb.
The Presbyterian Church was established at about the same time in West Street. The Presbyterian Outlook of January 1929 recorded, "Another link in the chain was added on Saturday, the 27th of October 1928, when a compact and commodious building to seat 100 was opened and dedicated at Burleigh Heads."
1928 was a monumental year for Burleigh Heads. Anglican, Presbyterian, Methodist and Roman Catholic church services were being conducted in separate wooden buildings from Park Avenue to Burleigh Street.
Christmas and Easter entertainment for the many visitors to Burleigh Heads attracted enormous numbers of campers.
To entertain them, William Fradgley approached the Nerang Shire Council for permission to hold entertainments at Burleigh Heads at Christmas, with the proviso that the film show was a sacred one. Outdoor sideshows were also allowed to operate during the Christmas and Easter holiday period by 1930.
A South Coast Bulletin headline in 1930 read, "Flappers Rule." As a result, Nerang Shire Council reacted by adopting a neck-to-knees ruling for beach attire on Burleigh beachfront.
Another of Gladys's favourite memories is a time during the 1930s when there were 43 members in the Sunday school and the superintendent was Mrs. Hadley. It was a time when a Sunday service was an all-morning affair.
She can also remember the planting of the Norfolk Island pine in 1953, commemorating both the construction of the adjoining hall to the Methodist Church and the 25th anniversary of the Methodist Church in Burleigh Heads, 1928 to 1953.
Shortly after World War II ended, Mrs. Lawtree presented a 1906 bell organ to the Methodist Church. The pump-action instrument was later housed in Reg Schuster's museum shed located on Lower West Burleigh Road.
On the 17th of January 1963, Probationary Minister Bernie Long was ordained and inducted into the parish of Burleigh Heads Presbyterian Church. His wife Roslyn and their 3 children became much-loved figureheads for the ensuing decade and a half. Sadly, I must report to those who remember Bernie with great fondness that he passed away in early July at Anglesea, Victoria, aged 88 years.
The first signs of cooperation were signalled on the 24th of August 1967 when the Presbyterians and Methodists combined, agreeing that the Methodist minister, the Reverend S.O. Abrams, would conduct the morning service and the Presbyterians the evening service.
Combined Sunday school classes commenced on the 4th of February 1968 with an enrolment of 50 children in kindergarten and 130 in other sections. 23 teachers and helpers rounded out the complement. They met in the Presbyterian Church in West Street.
In a strategic move, the Presbyterian property in West Street was sold to the Christian Science Church in 1973 for $51,000. Imagine what the property would be worth in today's dollar value.
On the 6th of April 1975, the Methodist Presbyterian Cooperation Church combined with other Gold Coast churches to form a cooperative parish. At the very vanguard of the movement towards the national basis of union, the service was conducted in Miami High School's Great Hall with 800 people in attendance.
On the 6th of December 1975, a new two-storey church building was dedicated by representatives of the Methodist and Presbyterian churches. At the opening service, 400 people squeezed into accommodation intended for 250.
During the construction period, Mrs. Lloyd's house on West Burleigh Road, adjoining the church, was offered at market price. An amalgamation of the land with the existing parcel gave the church its present total of 1,804 square metres. Care was taken to preserve the various memorials to former faithfuls of the sister churches.
The Uniting Church in Australia, UCA, was established on the 22nd of June 1977, when the Methodists, Presbyterians and Congregational members came together under the basis of union. In the same month as the inauguration of the UCA, Reverend Long accepted a call to Victoria, and the Reverend Garth Filmer took his place in the cooperative parish, serving as a Presbyterian minister for just 15 days before union became a reality on the 22nd of June 1977.
The Golden Jubilee of the erection of the Methodist and Presbyterian churches in Burleigh Heads was held on the 5th of November 1978. Guest preacher was Reverend Noel Kidd of Kedron, who was Minister of Coolangatta Palm Beach in 1962 to 1965.
It did not take too many years for the Burleigh Heads congregation and the many regular winter visitors, dubbed Swallows, to outgrow the 1975 new church.
On 16th of September 1990, the present Church on the Hill was officially opened. The moderator of Queensland Synod, Reverend Don Weeble, performed the dedication. Tribute was paid to the support given by our Swallows. The generosity of these people provided the sanctuary furniture, as well as significant cash donations towards building costs.
The building fund totalled $278,000, with a debt of $55,000. Many fundraising events were held, including dinners, concerts, Lamington drives and garage sales. Through the enthusiasm and generosity of our people, the debt on the church was repaid in a relatively short time. Fundraising continued, enabling a downstairs kitchen and the second hall to be built, following which extensive renovations were made to the manse in Acanthus Avenue.
Our 75th anniversary weekend in 1998 began with a formal sit-down dinner on the Saturday evening. You will recognise a number of smiling faces as guests checked in.
During the Sunday service on the 1st of November, we placed memorabilia in a time capsule to celebrate the 75th anniversary and a continuous presence of the church on this site.
The 1998 capsule was dedicated by Reverend Dr. Clive Eyre, then sealed in a permanent stainless tube in the southeast corner of the church property, the Cooker children playing a significant role in the ceremony.
The opening of the pre-loved fashions shop in Miami Village Shopping Centre was managed by Iris Whiteside, with Sidekick, Robyn Chapman, who faithfully served the Mountain View community. We also ran a couple of fashion parades as fundraisers.
The Leisure Ministry appeared on the scene in 2005, closely followed by
the formation of the Friendship Club, which at its height hosted 40 clients. Both then and now, weekly morning tea, quizzes, board games and friendly chatter, as well as special events, have been featured for Easter and Christmas celebrations.
Art Attack, curated by Bruce Newbrook, has been meeting continuously for 22 years in the lower hall, not forgetting the biannual exhibitions of their artistic talents.
Who doesn't have an original Bruce, Isabel or Marilyn masterpiece hanging on their lounge room wall?
In 2008, the effervescent Reverend Colin Batt attempted to reach out to young Burleigh families via his Family at 5 initiative. I understand that former Chair of Elders, Tom Snowden, learnt to flip hundreds of sausages for this special outreach project.
Scores of people across the years have worshipped, been baptised, married and buried from the church on the hill. Its ambience is very special because it stands as a sentinel at the top of James Street and looks out towards the imposing Burleigh headland. To maintain a faithful presence within the community of Christ is the real reason for our existence, connecting people with God through worship in a small, caring community.
With commitment to and understanding of our changing times, we can eagerly look forward to August 21-23, when we will celebrate our bicentennial anniversary.